Welcome to Testimony Mountain. We're in process of getting ready for our March retreat, and so my studio is all taken apart in preparation. So you get me in my little comfy chair here, which is probably just as well. And I'm excited to bring a testimony to you about some experiences I've gone through recently regarding my car and different memories that have surfaced in the midst of that. And so I had, in the divorce, I had chosen the older car mainly because in exchange for my ex-husband taking on some debt, because I really wanted to start my new life debt-free. And so that was a willing choice on my part. And it was fine for, a few months. I don't drive a whole lot, so not really a big deal. But then I was driving, actually, it was Christmas Day. Yeah, I was driving to meet my family, and I was on a busy freeway in Texas, and all of a sudden my car dies as I'm, in the middle of probably about 6 lanes of traffic. And I'm trying very hard, as the car is slowing down to drift, to kind of drift over as far as I can and try to get to a safe place. And finally did. And so I just sat there for a minute and just began crying out to the Lord, for help. And he blessed me in that I was able to start the car up again, was able to get done what I needed to that day. But I knew I needed to, you know, find out what was going on. And so we had a local mechanic that lives near us that one of my housemates had been to. And so I took it into him. He looked it over and he saw some things that were likely part of that issue. And in the process, I'm meeting him for the first time, and he just sits down and actually just starts pouring out his heart about struggles he's going through. And it gave me quite an opportunity to just share my faith with him and encourage him that God cares and God knows and is interested in his life. And so put out some money and he fixed the car and seemed like things were okay for a few days. But then I was driving somewhere, and again, uh, just on the road, it dies. I'm able to pull off, and this time it doesn't restart. So I'm like, oh Jesus, please. We had to get a tow. Somebody came and picked us up and back to the mechanic. And it was over New Year's holiday. So there was a big delay. It was a week before he could get to it, and there was other people in the house that have cars, so it's not the end of the world, but it was still just a pain. And I was kind of fussing to the Lord about it, and he said, is it worth a soul? I was like, okay, all right, whatever you're doing, Lord, I'm willing. And so got it fixed again. Some more issues that he had found, things that had been burned out and needed fixing. And here's my cat Dewey coming right in the middle of Testimony Mountain. That's what I get when my studio's not working. But this is Dewey, my cat, and he is 17 years old. And he's usually very shy, but of course, he doesn't know that you're here with me also. And so we'll see if he'll settle down here. And so, anyway, um, he fixed it again. And a couple days later, when someone else was driving the car, it stalled again and brought it back in, another chunk of money. I chose not to at that point. It was like, okay, God, you're up to something and I don't know what to do. I'm feeling very vulnerable, but I'm trusting that you have a plan. And so at that point, I decided to sell the car, and the mechanic actually bought it, and um, for pretty much, what I had paid him, he gave me back. So that was at least almost coming even for me, and just trusting that God would be my provider in the midst of this. Well, what I didn't know is God was working on a whole lot of levels, on a lot of different things. Um, I will say the good news is the mechanic is now going to church and getting involved. And I hope really turning his life around. Um, but then began the search for a new car. And as I was, there was a whole lot of terror and fear and panic coming up. And it was so annoying because it's like, I'm a grown woman, what's all this about? I certainly can figure out how to buy a car on my own and make a decision. But there was just so much unusual feeling in the midst of it. So I knew there was more here. And as I began to process with the Lord, memories began to be surfaced about what happens in cars for those of us who were trafficked, that especially car trunks in the back of cars with dead bodies, in the car with live bodies being transported to different places and different things. And, it's one of those things that as a survivor, sometimes there's things that we do that you wonder why we do them. And then, a memory will surface and you'll go, oh, that's why, and I typically would rarely use a car trunk. I would always put my groceries in the back seat. I put my luggage in the back seat if I could avoid the trunk, and I had no idea why. I just thought, oh, it's a little more of a pain, to open the trunk. I just thought I was lazy. I didn't realize the level of memories that were there. And so I began to look for cars. Some people were helping me. And, every time I would go to look at cars or think about it, I would often become nauseated and this panic would come. And it seemed like when I began to, talk to my parts, that there were some deep things going on, and especially car lots. Um, Another thing that, you know, I thought was just part of who I am and not related to the trauma was I would say all cars look alike. I can't, it's like if I would try to follow someone, I'd have to really, really, really pay attention because otherwise I'd find myself following the wrong car. And so I didn't realize that how much trauma was related to cars. And for trafficking victims, this is kind of par for the course. It might be cars, others, it might be hotel rooms or both. And these are things that as the Lord surface these things, he wants to help us overcome and to bring restoration. And so I realized that even when I went to grocery shop and there's a parking lot with all these cars, I would just kind of blank everything out and just look for, my particular car. And so anyway, the Lord was surfacing these things, having to work through the pain of that, the panic in the terror related to cars, especially car trunks. Um, I found a car I thought would work and I ordered it through a company. And then I found out that it was not a reputable company and they were charging me more than they should. And so again, there's just like, Lord, this is just crazy. This is too much. This is just continuing this panic. And I know you want to heal and restore, but I've had enough of this. And anyway, so I had to go through the process again to find another car. And then it was not in the local area, so it had to be shipped here. And that took extra long too. And I was so frustrated because it was like, just God, get this nightmare over with. I don't want to think about cars anymore. And I just need something reliable to get around in. But our amazing God always has deeper levels that he's wanting to go in our healing. And as I continued to journal and process with him, the realization came that um, not only had I been in the trunks of cars, but I'd also been in the driver's seat. And I had had a hint of this in the past with a dream where I was trying to cross the border with a child, and at the time it was like, okay, it's just a dream. I hope it's not a memory. I didn't pay much attention to it. But this time the Lord was like, you need to face this in our love. And it was really, really, really difficult to um, face the fact that I had also been involved in trafficking children as an adult. And that, and the Lord was so gracious and gentle in showing me that the reason and why they would talk to me into it was that because as a woman, I could get away with transporting children without having them be in the trunk and drugged and things like that that I had gone through. And that was so terrifying that it was like, okay, well, I'll be the driver because then we can get past borders and different things without being um, without suspicion and a little bit gentler to the children. And I know it sounds awful and in my journaling arguing with the Lord, it's like, yeah, let me gently take you to where you're going to be trafficked. And the Lord was like, wouldn't you have appreciated that instead of being in the trunk? And I had to say yes, but still it's horrendous. And that's usually what the cult puts you in these double binds is, choosing a lesser evil. And so there was just great grief experiencing and um, deep hatred for myself in the sense that, how could I have done this? Now, again, I was programmed, I was trained. This is a buried memory, it's just surfacing. But still, the heinousness of having been involved in it was just crushing me. And I know that the Lord's plan is to take everything from our lives, no matter how horrible, and He wants to bring restoration. And so one day in my journaling, I just was pouring out my heart to Him, my struggle, my pain. And um, He said, would you like to see some of those children that were trafficked? And, um, in the past, I've shared this, I believe, on here when um, those that I have participated in taking their life, I've seen them on the other side and their joy in being with Jesus and Him healing and restoring all of them helped me be able to forgive myself. But in this case, He showed me something a little different, and it was kind of surprising to me. My general assumption was that when children transition, that under the age of accountability, that they would transition cleanly straight to Jesus's arms. But my understanding, and you don't have to believe this, I'm just sharing my experience, is that when adults transition, sometimes they get stuck in what I call regions of captivity. And I believe our parts can be stuck in regions of captivity on this side of the veil, but also they can be stuck on the other side of the veil. And it's not Jesus trying to torment anybody, but it's our own pain and mindsets and grief or any number of things that keep us stuck in a region of captivity. And in this case, the Lord showed me that these children some of them that I had participated in trafficking, had transitioned, but were in a region of captivity. And it surprised me. But He said, I felt like He said that because of what they'd experienced, similar to what I experienced, just the enormous demonic layering in and torture and so on, that these children could also get stuck in regions of captivity. And He invited me to participate with Him in that restoration. And I believe God is outside of time and space. How this all works, I don't really know. I just know that this was something He led me into, and I'm just sharing my experience. And so I saw these children curled up in a dark place. And I just began speaking to them of God's love and God's mercy and grace, and asking them to forgive me, but also moving quickly on to, you know, um, telling them about Jesus and His goodness and that He had a safe place for them. I asked them if they could see me or Jesus, because Jesus was right there with me, and they said no, but they could hear my voice. And so I just kept talking with them, sharing Jesus's love until they were all ready to make the transition, which is always a beautiful, joyful thing. There was about 25 of them. And I saw them kind of at a distance, in a safe place, and they were just happy and dancing and joyful in the light. And normally, this causes a whole lot of joy when I participate with the Lord in any kind of restoration. But there was still just this ache in my heart. And I was just like, I want to be joyful, but I'm still just feeling this ache. And the Lord said, that's because you're carrying all this big weight of guilt. And he said, I've not asked you to carry that guilt. And even though I know and I teach the love and grace of God for the worst of the worst, um, for me in that moment, my participation in this just felt so overwhelming that I didn't see how God, maybe God could forgive me, but I couldn't forgive myself. And so I wrestled through this with the Lord for a while. And, he just kept saying, you're tormenting yourself with this guilt. That's not my plan and that's not my intention. You didn't want to do this. The children knew that you didn't want to. They were grateful that you were gentle and kind with them. But still, I just, it was hard. And so finally it got to a point where I was able to say, okay, Lord, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to give you this weight of guilt. Um, and even with that, there wasn't a full release. I know that there's more layers that I'm going to have to face with this. But he then said, you asked these children several times to forgive you, but you never waited to receive their forgiveness. And he said, I want you to come and receive their forgiveness. And again, this was hard too. It was like, no, I don't want to face them. I don't, and he said, love is reciprocal, forgiveness is reciprocal. And, just encouraging me to take that step. And so finally, I said yes to the Lord, and he brought me to where the children were in this beautiful meadow. And we sat down on the ground in a circle. And the oldest one, he had a certificate of forgiveness that they had all prepared for me. And he read out that certificate. And then each one of the children came and just gave me a hug and fell into my arms. And I was just so undone by this. And it helped me to be able to forgive myself more and more and more. And so this is an ongoing journey. I was finally able to pick up my car this week, which I'm very, very grateful to have a car that I'm believing it will be reliable and take me to where I need to go and keep me safe with the true Lord Jesus. But even, going to pick up the car, it was not an easy thing. I had parts in me that were still saying, no, we don't want to go to car lots. Um, but going with the true family, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, having a friend come with me to be supportive, who understood what I was going through. Honestly, I was nauseated most of the time. And, when I felt the Lord say, I want you to share this as your testimony, I'm like, what testimony? Just barely making it through this. Um, and yet I hope that this will be encouraging to you, this journey of, you know, things coming to the surface, of memories coming, and of what was done to us, or what we have done, is painful and difficult and is not easy. The only way I can do this is in the light of God's unconditional love. I know that He does forgive me and that I'm called to forgive myself as well. And so there was a couple of people who I trust and who, I've opened my heart to in this way, that, when the first was surfacing about participating in trafficking, I just said, um, please don't hate me, and I said, I know you don't, but I hate me, so why wouldn't you? And when they responded with such love and care, that they don't hate me, that they love me, that they care about me, that they understand, that they're not disgusted by me or what I've done. Um, it is just such a healing place and gives me courage. I was able to share with some of my transformation groups about this. And then the Lord said, you can share it here as well. And so I hope that this encourages you. The way that we heal through all of this stuff is with that love from the true family, the unconditional love, and safe community. Having a community that believes us, that doesn't shy away from the hard stuff, that loves us in the midst of our pain. And even when we want to push them away, stay steady with us. This is how we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony, not loving our lives to the death. And so I just want to encourage you, no matter what you have gone through, there is nothing that is so bad that can't be forgiven. And I am a testimony of that because, I know some of this is just the tip of the iceberg, that there is much more to be uncovered that was done to me and that I have done, and that I get to face that in their love. And so I just want to encourage you to reach out to the Lord, reach out for safe community, and find that there is love and support there to overcome, and that the true Lord Jesus is able to take anything and everything that was done to us and that we have done, and they can bring restoration, beautiful restoration, and cause all things to work together for good. So I just want to bless you with this, encourage you to like, subscribe, share, pass this along to those who may need this encouragement. And know that today, right where you are deeply loved and cared for. All right. I bless you, and we'll see you next time on Testimony Now.